Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that in the coming week, something horrifying will descend upon Bill once more. His health, which had already been compromised, takes a sudden turn for the worse just as he begins to recover from a previous mysterious blackout. The air around him grows heavy, and a dark tension hangs in his home, one that cannot be explained by mere illness. Bill's new wife, Hayley, is there during his episodes, but her reactions are not those of a loving, concerned partner. The first time Bill collapsed, she stood frozen, silent, unmoving, only reaching for help after he had slipped fully into unconsciousness. When doctors couldn't determine the exact cause of the blackout, she chalked it up to stress and exhaustion, but Bill had felt something different. He remembered a metallic taste in his mouth. A strange, sharp dizziness unlike anything he'd felt before. Something was wrong. As Bill rests and tries to regain strength, Hayley remains close, but not in a nurturing way. She hovers, watches. She brings him drinks at odd times. He begins to notice that every time he falls ill, he has just finished one of her prepared teas or health smoothies. It's subtle, insidious. She times her help perfectly, never acting until she's sure he's fallen past the point of recovery. This time, as Bill slumps over in his armchair after drinking a chilled glass of water she hands him, Hayley waits. Watches. 1 minute. 2. Only when his head hits the table and the glass shatters on the floor does she finally call for help, her voice calm, even measured. The paramedics arrive too late to witness the moment of collapse. To them, she's a frightened, panicked wife doing all she can. To Bill, as he drifts between consciousness and black void, he remembers her face just before his vision goes black, a face not of concern, but calculation. Rumors begin to stir. Friends and colleagues notice how quickly Hayley assumed control of Bill's estate during his recovery. She's fielding calls from lawyers, adjusting insurance policies, moving money between accounts. All under the guise of protecting Bill's legacy. But there's something off about it. Something efficient. Predatory. Privately, one of Bill's old friends, Marcus, begins to investigate. He remembers Hayley's sudden appearance in Bill's life, how they met at a networking gala, how quickly the romance escalated, and how she seemed to know just enough about Bill's interests and investments to keep him intrigued. Marcus reaches out to a private investigator. The report that comes back is chilling. Hayley has a history. Not under her current name, but through aliases. A string of wealthy men, all of whom suffered sudden health declines shortly after marrying her. One died. Another vanished. All were heavily insured. All had Hayley, under various names, listed as the primary beneficiary. Meanwhile, Bill's condition worsens. His energy is gone. His appetite fades. He tries to speak up, to warn someone, but his voice is weak, slurred. His limbs barely respond. Hayley continues administering supplements and insists the doctors allow her to handle his medication schedule. Each night, he hears whispers in the hallway, her phone conversations, always in hushed tones. He picks up fragments, insurance, policies, authorization. His name, again and again. One night, Bill manages to crawl out of bed and stagger to the bathroom. There, he finds a pill bottle he doesn't recognize tucked behind the mouthwash. The label is scratched out, but the pills inside are a strange color, unlike any of his prescribed medications. He hides them in a towel and crawls back to bed before she notices. The next day, he calls Marcus and tries to speak, but the words come out garbled. He manages only a few syllables before Hayley enters the room and hangs up the call. Her smile is razor-thin. You shouldn't be on the phone in your condition, Bill. Rest. I'll handle everything. That evening, she brings him another drink, iced tea with a twist of lemon. The same bitter aftertaste coats his tongue. Bill's vision begins to blur again. But this time, he has a plan. Before drinking, he swapped the glass when Hayley wasn't looking. The real poison drink sits in the drawer of his bedside table. As he feigns weakness, drifting into what she assumes is another blackout, Hayley makes a phone call. Bill records it with a small device Marcus had smuggled in on a visit. She speaks with a man. Mentions the transfer is ready. That soon, Bill will be gone. But she doesn't know that Marcus, armed with the private investigator's report and a copy of the recording, is on his way. That he has involved the authorities. That the paramedics will be arriving not just to save Bill but to confront Hayley. And yet, the story doesn't stop with greed. There are deeper shadows forming around Hayley's past. Marcus's investigator uncovers a disturbing pattern. All of Hayley's previous victims died under strange, sometimes unexplained circumstances. Their bodies reacted to poisons that didn't exist on standard toxicology reports. One man was found with black veins across his skin. Another, eyes wide open and pupils dilated, as if he had seen something horrifying before death. Even more chilling, each of these victims had been involved just before their deaths in projects or businesses tied to paranormal investments. Films, artifacts, occult charities. Bill was no exception. He had recently helped fund a documentary tied to the cursed VHS that first appeared in Beyond the Gates. Marcus digs deeper. He finds that Hayley was not only connected to these men, but may have introduced them to the very projects that led to their demise. She wasn't just a Black Widow. She was a conduit. A recruiter. The question becomes, what is Hayley trying to summon? Or worse, who is she working for? Bill, half-conscious, begins to hallucinate her, so he thinks. In his fevered dreams, he sees a woman not unlike Hayley standing before a mirror that reflects nothing. A shadow figure behind her. Eyes like fire. And a whisper that grows louder with each night. You were chosen. You belong to the gate. He wakes in sweat, pulse pounding. But he remembers every word. Hayley, during this time, begins her final steps. She arranges Bill's will. She pushes doctors for at-home hospice. She stages calls from specialists urging comfort measures. Every piece is falling into place. Until the night she returns from a brief errand to find the house silent, her glass still full on the table, and Bill's bed empty. He left a note. No words. Just a recording device. And the drink. Hayley knows it's over. Or maybe it's just beginning. Because what Marcus and Bill have yet to uncover is the real price Hayley is paying. Her deals were never just for money. Each husband, each death, each act of poisoning was a tithe. A soul traded for something else. Something that waits. Something that watches through the gate Bill unknowingly helped fund. And now, with the ritual incomplete and the blood debt unsettled, the entity may come not just for Bill, but for her. In the hours that followed Bill's quiet departure from the house, Hayley remained frozen in the living room. The untouched drink. The voice recorder. The bed empty. Her plan unraveled in silence, but her mind was already racing, calculating, rewriting. She didn't panic. Hayley never panicked. If anything, her eyes darkened with a strange calm, like someone who had prepared for this contingency all along. She didn't leave. She waited. And, just before dawn, they came. 2 officers. 1 plainclothes detective. And Marcus. The paramedics stood nearby, waiting for a signal. Bill had alerted them. He had survived. He had bought himself time, just enough. Hayley met them at the door, robe tied perfectly, hair brushed into a loose bun, expression serene. Marcus didn't speak. He looked at her with the weight of everything he now knew. Hayley smiled. That same razor-thin smile that had haunted Bill's last moments of awareness. But as the officers moved to detain her, Hayley collapsed. No one saw her slip the capsule between her teeth. No one saw the way her hand clenched tightly just before she dropped to the floor, eyes rolling back. By the time the paramedics reached her, she was convulsing, foaming at the mouth. Her heartbeat erratic, thready. They worked quickly, but the dose had been exact. Enough to kill. Or so it seemed. She was rushed to the hospital. Placed on life support. Comatose. The case stalled. But Marcus wasn't finished. And neither was Bill. Weeks passed. Bill recovered slowly. He changed his medications, refused anything Hayley had touched. He worked with Marcus to deliver the evidence to the right hands. The insurance scams, the aliases, the chain of deaths. But the supernatural threads were harder to prove. That changed when Marcus received an envelope. No postage. No return address. Inside was a single VHS tape labeled in smeared ink, "Bill Final Terms." Bill didn't want to watch it. He had already stared too long into that abyss. But Marcus insisted. They found an old VCR and played it together. The tape was grainy, shot in a dim red light. Hayley sat in a circle drawn with ash and bone. Her voice was not her own. It shifted in tone, cadence, in and out of languages neither man recognized. Behind her, a shape stirred. Not clearly visible, more like a presence the camera barely captured. It was the same shadow Bill had seen in his hallucinations. Hayley's chant ended abruptly. She turned to the camera. Her eyes fully black. "I gave you what you asked," she said. "Now give me the rest." The figure behind her whispered something static flare and then the tape cut to black. Marcus turned to Bill. "She wasn't just poisoning you. She was preparing you. Offering you up. Then why didn't she finish it? Because you didn't die. You broke the ritual." Hayley's coma wasn't a result of poison. It was punishment. The entity she served had been denied its claim. Now it wanted balance. And it wasn't done. Strange phenomena began to unfold. Bill's house, once quiet, now echoed with whispers. Electronics flickered at odd hours. Doors opened without reason. The reflection in the mirror didn't always match his movements. He began to dream again. But this time, it was no dream. He stood in a long hallway, endless doors on either side, each one marked with sigils. Hayley stood ahead of him, her back turned. At the end of the hall, a gate stood open. A thin mist poured from it, whispering, reaching. "You didn't let me finish," she said without turning. Bill woke screaming. The doctors treating Hayley couldn't explain her state. She was stable, but unresponsive. Sometimes her lips moved, whispering to no one. The nurses said they felt watched. Machines glitched when they entered her room. One night, a nurse quit mid-shift after finding symbols drawn in blood beneath Hayley's bed, symbols that hadn't been there during routine checks. Bill knew he had to end it. He returned to the location of the original film shoot, the cursed documentary he'd helped fund. The footage had been archived, buried, deemed too disturbing to release. But it wasn't the film he needed. It was the object unearthed during the final week of production, a mirror said to be a gate. They had used it as a prop. But it wasn't a prop. It was real. And Hayley had known. Bill broke into the old studio. The mirror was still there, hidden behind tarps and rusted scaffolding. Its surface rippled when he approached. A low hum vibrated through the floorboards. He placed the tape in front of it. "You want me? I'm here." The surface darkened. Smoke curled from its edges. A figure stepped forward, almost human, cloaked in shadows, its face a mass of shifting features. "You were promised," it said. But she failed. "I didn't agree to anything. You watched. You funded. You built the gate. That is enough." Bill's hands trembled. "Then take me. Leave everyone else." The entity paused. Too late. In that moment, Marcus screamed from outside the studio. Bill turned and ran. Marcus was on the ground, bleeding from the eyes, muttering Hayley's name. Behind him, standing in the doorway, was her silhouette. Not comatose. Not dead. Changed. Her skin was pale. Her eyes fully black. And in her presence, the temperature dropped. "I finished what you interrupted," she said. Bill stared in horror. "You're supposed to be in a coma." "I walked through." "You wouldn't." "So I did." She stepped forward. Marcus tried to crawl away but collapsed. Bill stood between them. "What do you want?" "Balance. The debt must be paid." Hayley extended her hand. The entity moved behind her. They were one now. The gate had chosen her as its vessel. Bill looked into her eyes and saw all the lives she'd taken. Not just for money, but for access. Every man, every death, was a key in a sequence. He knew what had to be done. He turned and hurled the tape into the mirror. The entity screamed not from pain, but rage. The mirror cracked. The room shook. Hayley lunged forward, shrieking, but Bill grabbed her and dragged her toward the mirror. You made the deal. Not them. You want a soul? Take yours. With the last of his strength, he shoved her forward. The mirror's surface pulled her in like liquid, swirling into chaos. Her scream echoed through the room. Then silence. The mirror shattered. Glass fell like rain. Bill collapsed. When he woke, he was in a hospital bed. Marcus, bandaged but alive, sat nearby. It's over, Marcus said. Bill turned to the window. The sky was clear. No more whispers. But on the table beside his bed, a single shard of mirror shimmered. Just enough to show a reflection. Just enough for something to see through. And wait. In the weeks that followed, Bill avoided mirrors entirely. He had the house scrubbed of every piece of glass, every surface that could reflect. Even his phone screen was kept dimmed. Marcus helped him set up a new surveillance system that worked entirely through analog, no digital interference, no screen-based devices. But it wasn't enough to quiet the feeling. Late at night, the whispers returned. They didn't come from outside. They came from inside him. Echoes. Memories. Promises that had never been his. Sometimes they came in Hayley's voice. Sometimes they were the thing behind her. One morning, a neighbor called to report a scream from Bill's property. When officers arrived, they found the house undisturbed. Doors locked. No signs of forced entry. Bill answered the door, calm, collected. But his eyes were tired. Too tired. It's fine, he said. Must have been the wind. Later that day, Marcus received a package. No return label. Inside was another VHS tape. Blink. No label. Just one word burned into the plastic case, return. Marcus didn't watch it. He burned it instead. He knew better. But that night, as he stood in front of his bathroom mirror, the lights flickered. And behind him, for just a second, Hayley smiled. Something had survived. And it wasn't done. Not with Marcus. Not with Bill. Not with the gate that shattered but never closed. Because the gate wasn't just a doorway. It was an invitation.